Oh, hello there, yes. Well, good grief. Isn't it a slow week? It's been a slow week. It's because I have too much work to do and everything seems to be taking forever and I'm going to blame the system. Yes. Anyway, talking of the system, we do have glorious displays of meta-narrative about various things, which have been sort of drifting into a kind of gaslighting or indeed just pure lunacy levels yesterday. Ukraine notwithstanding. I did have to smile at this concept that we aren't allowed to think of anything negative about Brexit. It can't be done. Therefore, Brexit must be good. Therefore, anything post-Brexit must be a plus for all of us. Hooray! So we have Nigel Farage, who was writing in the Daily Telegraph, and he said, well, this is the headline, Keir Starmer can stand tall on the world stage thanks to Brexit Britain. Yes, indeed, you see, because it's given him the freedoms to do what he's done. I mean, can you imagine Britain sort of playing a leading role in the military defence of Europe before we had Brexit? Because I certainly can't, and I think Nigel can't either, which is a bit strange, really. Or we might think of him proving a sort of bridge between us and America and the Europeans as well. I mean, we might have a special word for that. We might think that that was quite a sort of relationship which was, perhaps special, what with our languages and, long history of things pre-Brexit. It just astounds me that we've ended up at a situation whereby magically where we are now is a Brexit benefit. Still, undoubtedly, this is the case for Nigel Farage, yes. And then we kind of slip into these other things whereby loads and loads of stuff which patently have nothing to do with teachers or left-wingers whatsoever becomes a problem which can only be rectified by, locking up teachers or something. So there was also news yesterday that basically young women, that kind of, women, they're like men, but sort of, with fallopian tubes mostly. Yeah, anyway, those, apparently they're starting to earn at least as much as men, if not more. And of course, this is huge and it's going to be appalling because having, historically wanted women to have equal rights to men, now that they do, it's just awful. And of course, it must be the fault of the teachers. How dare they go around suggesting to women, that they have they have a right to anything, eh? Must be the wokists, yes, keeping men down and forcing them to not be good employees, and if they kick off at work it's because of their woke teachers. Yeah, there you go, that's another definite slice of reality for you. Or, as my sort of basic theme of the week as it's turning out, a sort of ahistorical view of the world, we get random things by brown people which become indicative and allow people to be racist. And I'm sure lots of you have seen this particular clip that Connor is highlighting here of a youth who's brown throwing something down at a shopping mall. Okay, so Connor Tomlinson says when people say London is dangerous. Good use of quotes there, Connor, although it really needs a colon, but you should know that having an English master's. Anyway, or that London has no-go zones. Well, yeah, okay, and again, you could then put that in single ones, but that's just me being picky. Yeah, they are not referring only to areas that have been unrecognisable and unsafe by democratic and cultural change. Okay, they're also talking about the arbitrary, unpredictable and random acts of violence, yes. And of course, Connor will well know that before mass migration in this country, there were no young men who indulged in random acts of arbitrary violence because only brown people do that. Okay? Yeah, I cannot think of any historical evidence that Connor can think of which might prove that. But that doesn't matter, does it? Because, of course, that provides a very, very neat way of him deciding, in his own particular way, that magically white people don't commit crime. I mean, can you think of any white people that have committed crimes? I can't. And on a deeper ahistorical level, the news that there was another study about the skin pigmentation of Europeans, that is Northern Europeans, of the last few thousand years, has been poo-pooed by various people for a variety of reasons. And the variety of reasons have to do with they don't want that to be true. Okay, they don't want the idea that their ancient ancestors might have looked different from them. Okay, people presumably have no concept of the rapidity of of evolution, or indeed just the way that DNA works, which again is one of my things for the week, isn't it? So we had an Italian study, right? The inference of human pigmentation from ancient DNA by genotype likelihood. And folks, if you don't know what genotype or phenotype is, I suggest you look it up, because the people commenting on this saying, well, that's just utter rubbish, isn't it? Yeah, the wokists are doing this, yeah, they're trying to tell us we were all black in the past and we definitely weren't, are of course people who oddly aren't like Silva Peretti, PhDs of biology. But we now live in a world whereby people who aren't PhDs of biology have managed to construct a narrative because they are such fragile, might go back to the masculinity thing, such fragile egos, right, okay, that they cannot possibly believe that several thousand years ago their ancestors may have lived on the steppes of Russia or indeed further south, even as far south as Shudder, Italy, right, yeah? So in other words, right, okay, we've always looked like this, the world has always been this way, and now it's being changed by bad people. That's always the kind of bigger thing that they do. But the construction of this stuff actually suggests that, for example, Sylvia decided, because he quite liked science, presumably he was being groomed by his teachers, to go down a scientific route. Let's assume it's in England and it's A-levels and a degree, okay? At which point he would have been taught stuff that was completely wrong by wokist lecturers, right? He then bought into that, did our aspiring PhD guy, okay, and took a master's where he would have learnt things that he knew was untrue, and he would have written things that he knew was untrue, and then he would have taken a PhD to become the professor and the leader of a team which deliberately has been setting out to prove things that definitely aren't true. And people without PhDs in biology know this to be true because it's too hard to think that I might be related to a brown person, even though, unfortunately, if they're Americans, the chances that they are enormously high. Imagine that, lying in bed at night, having to be so scared that your great-great-grandmother might not have been an Anglo-Saxon. Yes, and that's why they're so precious about the notion of being Anglo-Saxons, because imagine, if you had blood in you that was from bad people, you'd probably want to go to a shopping mall and throw things, wouldn't you? Yeah, that would be dreadful, wouldn't it? Astounding. Imagine living in a world where your masculinity is that fragile. Jeez, I'm going to construct a completely alternate reality which patently cannot be true to make myself feel better, and then I'm going to project that onto the world and become angry at the people that aren't doing the things that I'm pretending that they are. Phew. Astounding world that we live in. Yes, still, you can stop at level 1 with Nigel. Please don't go to level 2 with Connor. And for God's sake, whatever you do, if somebody has a PhD in a science, just accept, that they know what they're talking about. Oh no, well, incidentally, I'll leave a link to the thing down below. I mean, if you wanted to attack the paper, you could do the whole thing that it's not actually been peer reviewed. That would be the way to attack it if you wanted to. But what this person has done is they've picked out particular words that they found and found a sentence with a bit, which is a kind of umming and ahhing bit, even though they are completely ignoring the conclusions and indeed the stuff in the abstract, because they're a racist and they hate the idea that their blood might be sullied by something other than good Anglo-Saxon blood like I have. Look at that. It's lovely, isn't it? They don't have that. It's no wonder I feel superior. Anyway, do have a glorious midweek. Wonder what's going to happen tomorrow. We never know. Could be a nuclear war. Yeah, that's going to be interesting, isn't it? Yeah, we're all going to be very dark-skinned at that point, aren't we?